like to welcome you here tonight. We're just a couple of minutes away from getting started. I'd like to invite you to stand, join me in the pledge, and then I'll bring the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day you've given us. Thank you for the place you've given us in which to live. We thank you, Father, for our neighbors, for our friends, for our city. We ask that you give this council and all involved tonight wisdom and discernment so that the best decisions can be made and you will be glorified. And we ask this now in Jesus' name. Amen. I'd like to welcome you again to tonight's regular meeting of the Springdale City Council. This is Tuesday, January 23rd, 2018. We do have large print agendas over here. I think Sam's got them. He's talking, but we got some. Yeah. Okay. If two of you have bad eyes, you can get those. I'd be using one if I didn't have my contact in. So we'll call this meeting to order and ask Rose to do our roll call.
Mayor Sprouse.
Here.
Rick Culver.
Here.
Jeff Watson.
Here.
Mike Overton. Here. Colby Fulford.
Here.
Mike Lawson.
Here.
Rick Evans.
Here.
Jim Reed. Kathy Jaycox.
Here.
Ernest Cape.
Here.
All right, thank you. Item 4 is the portion of each meeting the council sets aside to hear comments from our citizens. We ask that if you would like to address the council concerning an item that is not on tonight's agenda, you're welcome to come at this time. Come to this microphone, clearly state your name and address, and please keep your comments brief. Is there anyone that would like to address anything before the council that is not on tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of minutes. Council, you've had an opportunity to look over these. If there are no additions or changes, I would entertain a motion to approve them as presented.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Item 6 is procedural motions. What's your pleasure, council?
Second.
Got a motion and a second for A and B. Roll call, please.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Fulford.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Carry 7-0.
Okay, great. Thank you. Item 7, a resolution. I'll go ahead and read it. A resolution endorsing participation in the sale and use tax refund program authorized by the Consolidated Incentive Act of 2003 and Arkansas Code annotated 15-4-2706D. Item to be presented by Scott Edmondson, or I guess Perry Webb.
Scott's on, today is his birthday.
Oh.
So we gave him the night off. The resolution in front of you is
You gave him the whole night off?
a whole night. That's it. A whole night. He and his wife are doing something.
Okay.
The resolution is for Rockline Industries here. They have an expansion. It's about a $3.2 million expansion. 3.1 of that is a machinery involved inside the building. We had conversations with them today and confirmed that there is no environmental issues of smell, sound, or noise, or any kind of environmental issues at all. The only issue you'll see from outside the building, hopefully, is about 24 more cars with new jobs, people parked in the parking lot.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Perry. Any questions? Yes, sir. Come right on up.
My name's Kurt Gash. I live 113 Woodcliff Circle, and there is noise. It's a steady, whining, howling sound. And it's 24/7, never goes away. I welcome anybody come up and witness it.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Kurt's a neighbor
Kurt,
of mine.
got a
Come
question.
back. When did this start?
Shortly after Christmas, I think, is when we first started noticing it.
And it's been consistent since then?
It's continuing. We have neighbors who have spent a lot of money to have soundproofing put on their windows. And yeah, it is just totally driving us nuts. Apex was bad enough. this is worse because of the high pitch of it. So there is noise pollution.
Harry?
This is the first I've heard of this, coming from Rockline. You and I had a conversation earlier today, and we can get on it and find out if there is a problem. The only thing I could think of, if there's a compressor unit or some kind of an air purification system or something like that that might have been installed, we'll get into it and see if we can find it. But that's the first I've heard of it. I'll be glad to check on it.
Can we please do that, because it was an unpleasant situation before, and it ended when Apex
Well,
moved?
I understand, and
Well, I
you
don't
know,
want that, as we talked about today, I don't want that
right.
to happen for a good neighbor, Rockline, or people that live in Woodcliff.
I just want to make sure that's where it's coming from, and it very well may be. I just want to make sure and get an explanation from the company.
I think
as to-
that's fair.
And we need to identify what it is.
I agree.
There may be something that could be done cosmetically or something else. But again, that's the first I've heard of it. We'll be glad to get into it.
Thank you, Perry.
And
Be glad to.
if we know when it started, that'll help us, possibly.
Hopefully that'll help. But I do want to point out that I have been down there to Rockline several times. I went right. Door number 3, you can hear it. I talked to an employee who works there. He said, very nice Hispanic guy. He said, can't hear it inside, but he sure can hear it outside.
Okay.
So it's not an OSHA problem for them, but it is for us.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Kurt.
All right.
Resolution do pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions?
I've got one question. This is just to endorse the participation. This is not a set amount or anything, is it?
It's a set amount by
Sorry,
the state that
I didn't
allows,
get all that. I'm sorry.
it's a set amount that the state allows anyone that makes an investment to recoup part of the sales tax. Is that not right?
They get 100% of the state sales tax. The recent laws that changed
That they pay.
make the city's collection of sales tax and the counties as part of that incentive also. So it takes it up to a full 9 3/4% or whatever that is. So what they spend on equipment in sales tax can be rebated back to them, and then what they spend on conversion and changing the building on materials can be rebated back.
Whole idea is to promote employment.
Exactly.
Right.
It's an incentive to make projects happen, right?
Okay, any other questions, comments? Anyone? Okay, Rose?
Culver,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Fulford.
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Carry 7-0.
Okay, item 8, and I'll read this one while Heath or Rick come. Resolution authorizing the execution of a memorandum of understanding with Rogers Waterworks pertaining to temporary water service to certain properties in the Springdale Water Utility Service area and for other purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What you have before you is a map of the area in question. As all y'all know, the growth in and around the service areas has been expedited over the last few years. And what has happened is there has been a lot of infill between Rogers service territory and our territory. And most of that's been managed pretty well. You got to understand, a lot of the territory lines were drawn probably in the 1960s. Some of them have been adjusted. Most recently, if you look at the area in light green,
Where are we here?
we
Heath?
are, okay, I'm sorry. What we are, if you look down in the lower left-hand corner, you're looking pretty much at McClure Avenue and that area.
Okay.
In Lowell. And then if you look at the main road going up to the north, in this photo, part of it's still unfinished, that is 265, which the Highway Department's been working on.
Right, okay.
Okay, so this map is properly oriented to the north. When 265 was happening and the relocation of some utilities was going on, it was inadvertently discovered that this area, which had been served, the green area, which had been served by Rogers for years, unknowing to them and to us, was actually in our service territory. And so we were faced with some questions, and we reached an intermunicipal agreement or memorandum of understanding with Rogers that they would temporarily serve that area until we got facilities up there. These were all done to our specs, and we would then hook into that. And they were amenable to that because it made the most sense for the taxpayers. It was about 1/3 the cost than it would have been for us to put in our lines and bill the highway department. Since then, Carroll Electric has started building a facility there. And at the same time, the same issue that looked at these property owners a little more than a year ago faced Carroll Electric. So at that time, we told Carroll there was an opportunity for them to perhaps, if Rogers was agreeable, to let them temporarily serve that property as well.
So our water service boundary is the green line?
Is the green line, and
Okay.
that does not
Okay.
follow the political lines, as
Right.
many of y'all know.
I got you.
As school districts and some other things. Rogers would actually be to the north of that.
When you're saying green line, are you talking about this?
This outline.
Yes, the dark green line would be the service boundary. Yes, sir.
Everything to the south of that is Springdale's water.
Everything to the south of that is Springdale. That's correct, Mr. Overton. So what we did is we went and asked Rogers if they would be open to that. They have went through their process, through their commission and through their city council. They have approved that agreement. Our commission has approved it, and it is subject to the approval of the Springdale City Council.
So once we get, the intention is, once we get water up, our water up there, then we'll hook on and it'll,
That's
we'll begin
correct.
serving it again.
Was there a trade-off to allow Rogers to service some of the area that Springdale had previously served? Did you have to do a trade-off, or they just decided that they were just doing this until we got there, and then it's all in our water service area, and we didn't relinquish any customers to Rogers as a quid pro quo?
No, sir. That is not the case here. There are some other issues further north that have not been resolved and have yet to be resolved. And most of that's between Rogers and Lowell. That's a whole nother story. But in this case, there was no trading of boundaries. In fact, neither one of the utilities is really interested in the boundaries changing because they have changed so much over the years. The question further north, back to your original question, is the availability of services to some of the northern areas that are near the Lowell-Rogers city limits. And that's a whole nother set of matters, as you can imagine.
It's because we service Lowell.
It's because we serve Lowell, as does Rogers. And in some cases where the two cities have boundaries, there are more contentious questions at large there. However, for this area, there is not, mainly being that at the time, neither one of us realized that Rogers had service in that area in our territory, and that's why they have been amenable to this kind of arrangement temporarily. They're building all these services to our specs and working with our engineering group. We are working on a more permanent solution for this, obviously. Our nearest water line, if you go down to the south, where you see the blue lines right above the legend, we do have a 12-inch water line there. There's an opportunity perhaps later to extend that or either come from the west to the east. If we can work with Carroll Electric, one thing we're trying to do is see if they wouldn't give us an easement up here to where we can extend some water from the west to the east to help serve this area. And that will hopefully take care of this general area for the future.
We did the same thing in 2015.
Yes, sir, we did. We did in a previous memorandum of understanding regarding some other places in this vicinity.
Okay, I've read the resolution.
I'll move the resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions or discussion? Anyone? Okay, Rose?
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Fulford,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
Jaycox,
Yes.
Culver,
Yes.
Carries 7-0.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heath. Item 9 is a resolution making appointments to the Public Facilities Board of the City of Springdale. I'll go ahead and take this. We have two positions that are expiring, and one is Walter Turnbow, and the other is Rex Bailey. Walter has decided to step down, so this resolution would reappoint Rex Bailey to another term on the Public Facilities Board, and it also would appoint Don Gibson to serve in Walter's spot.
I'll move the resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there further questions or comments? All right.
Overton,
Yes.
Fulford,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
Jaycox,
Yes.
Culver,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Carry 7-0.
Certainly appreciate their willingness to serve, and certainly want to appreciate and express appreciation to Walter Turnbow for his time on the Public Facilities Board. Item 10 is a resolution approving the reappointment of Al Hanby to the Springdale Water and Sewer Commission.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Rose?
Fulford,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
Jaycox,
Yes.
Culver,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We also appreciate Al's willingness to continue to serve on the Water and Sewer Commission. Item 11, Patsy's already up here. She said she's going to go fast tonight. We'll
I'm gonna
see.
go fast. Okay, here we go. Are you ready? The first item is a rezoning request for property owned by Arvest Bank, and it's located there on Robinson Avenue. It has parcel numbers because right now it doesn't have an address. The request is to rezone the property from MF4 and C2 to MF12. Planning Commission reviewed this request and recommends approval of the rezoning request. The title of the ordinance reads an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto, by rezoning certain lands from low medium density multifamily residential district MF4 and general commercial district C2 to medium density multifamily residential district MF12 and declaring an emergency. And there is a sale pending on the rezoning of this property.
What property fronts this on Robinson?
The C2 property that's to the
What are, I can't tell where this is. Which properties are they?
It's the one very south. There's a little strip in there. There's another piece of easement and stuff in there before you get to it, but that's the property to, it's right adjacent to,
That's those old chicken houses that were
Right.
converted to residences.
yes, it was part of that, yeah.
Yeah. So, and there's a house there, or is there a house there now?
I don't think the house is still there. I think it's been pretty well cleaned off.
Oh, okay, yeah.
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 Which we got,
Which we'll be talking about
we're
later.
going to talk about it in a minute for partial use of that building for something else too that's adjacent to it.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
I'll move the ordinance to be adopted.
On our map, it doesn't show including the frontage as.
Well, we had the original map that we had in there, we had an error in the legal description. We got all that cleared up
So
because it does include that front piece
So
on there.
they will have access off of Robinson for
The map
this
that you see
multifamily.
up there is actually what the legal descriptions actually describe. But when you get into, we had an error and one didn't close, we finally got that all figured out.
Patsy, did you read the ordinance?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Second.
Got
I made a motion to.
a motion and a second. Okay, are there other questions, comments? Anyone in the audience need to speak to this issue? All right, Rose?
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
Jaycox,
Yes.
Culver,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Fulford,
Yes.
First clause be adopted.
Second.
Evans, Jaycox,
Yes.
Culver,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Fulford,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
About the ordinance emergency clause, carry 7-0.
The next item is a ordinance to accept a replat of lots 1 and 2 of the Hamit Business Center. Was on the agenda last time. There was not enough or council members to adopt the emergency clause. So this is an ordinance amending that ordinance and adding an emergency clause. The title reads an ordinance amending ordinance number 5237, accepting the replat of lots 1 and 2 of the Hamit Business Center, a commercial subdivision, to the city of Springdale, Arkansas, to add an emergency clause.
And it has an emergency.
And it has an emergency clause, yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we adopt this.
Second.
Hey, everybody's just staring at each other.
Oh,
We're going to vote on the ordinance and to add the emergency.
Okay.
We already did the ordinance,
Okay, so-
correct? So we're just doing the emergency clause, is
They're
that
amending the ordinance, and then there's an emergency clause on this one.
on this
we need to
one?
do that separately?
Yes, like
So-
we normally do.
So we need a motion to amend the ordinance.
Right, a motion to pass this
moved.
ordinance and an emergency clause.
Right, okay,
moved.
okay. And then,
Second.
did we get a second? Okay. Rick. All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, Rose.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulford?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
I'll move that we add the emergency clause.
Second.
Okay. Motion, yeah, Culver.
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulford? Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Both the ordinance and the emergency clause
Hmm.
carry 7-0.
Next item is the same thing. It was an ordinance that allows us to amend the official zoning map and to replace it with 4-quadrant maps rather than all the individual sheets we've been using. It was passed, but again, it didn't have an emergency clause, so this is an ordinance titled, an ordinance amending ordinance number 5238, amending the official zoning map of the city of Springdale, Arkansas, pursuant to Article 3, Section 3 of the zoning ordinance of the city of Springdale, Arkansas, to add an emergency clause and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any further questions? Anyone? Okay.
Watson?
Is this really an emergency?
Well, puts our new map into effect, otherwise we got another 30 days. I mean, it
30
helps
days
us,
from the day it passed, didn't it?
60 days from the day it passed.
30 days, it would be 30 days.
Yeah, if you
from
don't
from
adopt the
January
emergency
9th.
clause to this
Another 30
emergency,
days.
we got still another 30 days. I mean,
With all the growth and changes going on within this area, I think this is a good idea, Jeff.
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulford? Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
Yes.
Second.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulford?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Both the ordinance and emergency clause carry 7-0.
okay, the next one was an amendment to the downtown form-based code regulatory plan, which took a 6-block area and changed it from a neighborhood center 2 to a neighborhood residential 2. Mike, if you go through, are there maps on that? Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Okay, that's it. This is the area that when we originally put the plan together, we thought those were going to go into more of a commercial type development. We have had applications to remodel the existing houses with substantial investments being made into those homes, but they couldn't be done if it stayed in that other district. So this changes that portion of the map. It was approved by the Planning Commission. It was approved by the City Council with the ordinance, no emergency clause, and we're back to adding the emergency clause because we have one renovation that's waiting on this to happen.
And the purpose of this is to designate this as a residential.
Right, as a residential
Development area.
rather than a mixed development where it had to have commercial with it. This can be a single-family dwelling, and what they're taking is existing ones and doing them.
Part that's in the black
That's what
dotted
changed.
area?
That's what changed. Yeah, okay. So this is an ordinance amending ordinance number 5239, amending Chapter 32 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Springdale, Arkansas, the Downtown District Form-Based Code to add an emergency clause and an emergency clause with this one too.
Just to be clear, the ordinance passed that would
Yes.
change the form-based code passed last council meeting. It just did not have an emergency.
I know this is for the emergency clause, but just for my benefit, does this add additional restrictions on residential renovation remodeling?
No, it's the
The
same
only
as,
thing, so they will follow the same building codes.
Right.
All this does is eliminates the requirement for having commercial in that particular area.
what
A mixed
happened in
use.
this previous zone, they couldn't renovate an existing house if they were going over a certain percentage and adding on to it or increasing the value. Well, I can tell you the value of the house with the renovation they're doing is about 3 times what it is valued today. But they couldn't do that because it wasn't a permitted use. So we moved it back into that category where single-family houses are allowed.
So we're allowing somebody to actually do something with their own property instead of telling them they can't.
Property they purchased, okay?
But they all, yeah, okay. I get it. I'm a little slow, but thank you.
I think Mike was right. I mean, but the difference between this and what it was before is
Less
the
restrictive, so she's saying.
we don't have the requirement for them to add, for it to be a commercial or partially commercial.
Right.
Okay.
It couldn't be a single-family house and be renovated to the extent it was
Right.
being done and stay a single-family house.
Gotcha.
They didn't want to build a second story on it, keep the house on the second story and put commercial on the bottom. That's not what they wanted to do.
Right.
And it's a house we want to keep in that neighborhood too, so. And there's 2 more, I think, that we'll get, at least 2 more, maybe 3, before we get finished too.
Okay, so we need a motion
To approve this,
to amend the ordinance.
to adopt this ordinance that amends that ordinance that allows a emergency clause. That's kind of like the replat of the replat of the replat.
Adopt the
Same
ordinance
thing.
as amended is what she's saying.
Yes.
Making that motion, Mike, is that what you're saying?
No, I was just clarifying so you could have the opportunity. You're
I
doing
was
so
allowing
well.
you that opportunity.
I'll
Since
make a
you've given
motion
it
to
to me.
ordinance do pass.
Rick did it.
Second.
Yep, you snooze, you lose. Second. All right. Any further questions or comments? Okay.
Fulford,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
The next item is
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
a
You got to vote on the
emergency clause of,
Lawson,
Yes,
get
ma'am.
the emergency clause.
Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
Jaycox. Culver,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Fulford.
Yes.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 7-0.
I've been here a long time, and there's not too many times that we didn't have enough people to do an emergency clause, so that was kind of a unique situation. Okay, can I do the next one now?
Yep,
Okay,
we're
the
ready.
next one is a resolution approving a conditional use for Johnny Aguilar at 3154 East Robinson. This is for a use unit 42, a church synagogue, in a general commercial district. Planning Commission is recommending that this conditional use be approved with the following conditions. The hours of operation be Sundays from 10 to 3, Wednesdays from 7 to 9. They must provide staff with a parking agreement. The maximum capacity will be no greater than 49, and as always, they have to meet the noise ordinance requirements.
In this particular area, they won't have much of a problem with the noise
Well-
ordinance because you've got to have multifamily and commercial across the street.
Right.
I can tell you a place where in town where we had a church next to some multifamily that we had a noise problem with.
That was, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so
what do you mean cross street? It'd be behind them.
it'd be behind
Well-
it, yeah.
Well, you've got commercial stuff across the street.
The
too.
multifamily.
Multifamily beside and behind, yeah.
Just to clarify, Patsy, make sure I understand, on the hours, that's Sunday 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And Wednesday 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
We need to have his name spelt correctly in the title.
Yeah, it should be a U instead of a I, shouldn't it?
Should be, I think they got the G and the U backwards.
Well, Augilar?
Yep.
We'll fix it.
I'll make a motion, the resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to pass the resolution. Any other comments or questions? Anyone in the audience? Okay.
Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Fulford.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Carry 7-0. We can put on the record that Mr. Reed has arrived.
The next item is a request for a conditional use for a use unit 28, a home occupation in a low, medium density, single-family residential district, SF2, by Haley Rocco at 8255 La Scala Avenue. Planning Commission reviewed this request and recommends approval with the following conditions. No alteration of the outside appearance of the residential structure, provision of a separate outside entrance for the business areas of the residential structure, no outside storage of materials required for the operation of the business, operated only by the resident members of the household and shall not have any employees, concessionaires, or any other form of operator or helper, whether Such business is conducted on the premises or off the premises, requires the use of an area no greater than 30% of the total heated living space of the residential structure, generates no traffic, parking, and sewage or water use in excess of what is normal in the residential neighborhood, will not produce any fumes, odors, noise, or any other offensive effects that not normal to residential activity, will not involve accessory buildings, and stock and trade shall not exceed 10% of the floor area of the accessory use. And this is an embroidery business that she wants to do at this location.
Move the resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Anyone in the audience on this one? Okay, Rose?
Reed? Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulford?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Carries 8-0.
The next item is a conditional use for a tandem lot split that is being requested by Twyla Newton at 9075 West Wagon Wheel Road. Planning Commission recommends the approval of the conditional use. The resolution approving a conditional use for Twyla Newton at 9075 West Wagon Wheel Road is set forth in Ordinance number 4030. This will be followed up with a lot split that will be filed to record the
Resolution to pass.
tandem lot.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion.
Quick question. Patsy, the two commissioners that voted no, what were their objections?
We didn't have all of the details of the lot split itself actually worked out, and it's kind of a unique situation because there's an existing road in there, whether or not that has to be paved or not, whether it's an existing road or not, and they didn't want to move forward with it till they knew they were going to get the conditional use. So that's kind of how we move forward with this one. It's a little bit different. It has some extenuating circumstances that most of them don't have.
Okay, do we have any, we do have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions? Anyone in the audience? Okay,
Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulford?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Reed?
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
The next item is a conditional use for a use unit 44, a mobile vending in a general commercial zone C2, requested by Miguel Amador at 1101 South Thompson. Planning Commission reviewed this conditional use request and recommends approval with the following conditions. They may not operate between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. No obstruction of parking spaces required for the operation of any use on the site. Maintain on the site a minimum of 3 parking spaces designated for their use. If the health certificate is required, display the health certificate in a manner visible to customers. No obstruction of pedestrian or motor vehicle traffic flow. No obstruction of traffic signals or regulatory signs. No vending upon a public way. Sound any device that produces a loud and raucous noise in violation of city ordinance or violating any other city ordinances in connection with the vending operation, and keep the vending sites clean and free of paper or refuse of any kind generated from the operation of the business. All trash or debris accumulating within 20 feet of the vending stand shall be collected and deposited into a trash container.
What's on there now? Is there a house there now?
This is the,
Open parking lot.
it's right
it's
by,
the box,
Cost 10, box 10.
Oh,
box
okay.
10. It's in the
Okay.
parking lot at box 10.
Oh,
by the
okay.
old Hart's
Gotcha,
office.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought it was the next block over, okay.
Nope.
What kind of, they're gonna have a mobile vending?
A
what-
mobile vending unit there set up at that location, yeah.
Yes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more questions or comments? Anybody in the audience? Okay, Rose?
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulford?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Reed?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
The next item is a waiver request for sidewalks in connection with a single-family dwelling being built at 9841 Wager Road. Planning Commission recommends approval of or grant the waiver of the sidewalk improvements. Title of the resolution reads, "A resolution approving a waiver of street improvements, drainage, curbs, gutters, and sidewalks is set forth in ordinance number 3725 to Ben Decker, DBA Decker Quality Homes in connection with 9841 Wager Road, a single-family dwelling."
Move the resolution pass.
Second.
With option 1, sorry.
Option 1, okay. We do have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? Anyone? Anyone in the audience? Okay.
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulford. Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
The next one is the same request for a waiver of sidewalk improvements in connection with a single-family dwelling at 3558 South Downham Road. Planning Commission recommends granting the waiver. Title of the resolution reads, a resolution approving a waiver of street improvements, drainage, curbs, gutters, and sidewalks as set forth in ordinance number 3725 to Frank Barnes in connection with 3558 South Downham Road, a single-family dwelling.
Resolution passed with option 1.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution with option 1. Any other comments or questions? Anyone? Okay.
Overton.
Yes.
Fulford.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
The next one is another waiver of sidewalks in connection with a large-scale development plan, L1802 for KMZL LLC located at, I don't know what the address is. It's on South 40th Street. The Planning Commission recommends approval or granting of the waiver. The title of the resolution reads, a resolution approving a waiver of street improvements, drainage, curbs, gutters, and sidewalks as set forth ordinance number 3725 to KMHZ LLC in connection with L1802, a large-scale development.
Move the resolution pass. Oh, sorry, option 1.
Which option?
1.
1.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, motion and a second.
So they have sidewalks across the street, but we're not going to put any on this side?
Right. The sidewalk on 40th Street is
We
already.
do have sidewalks on both sides of 40th.
Yeah.
There's already a sidewalk on 40th?
Yeah. This is for
This
Haley.
they would have to take it out and widen it with the new, Jason, correct?
Sidewalk.
There's currently a 4-foot sidewalk along 40th. I think the street section shows a 5-foot sidewalk, so we're requesting that waiver of the additional foot and to leave the 4-foot sidewalk in place. We will have a sidewalk along Haley.
Okay.
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 So it's not destroying the sidewalk on 40th Street?
It's just not adding a foot to it or
leaving
tearing it
alone.
out and putting in another foot.
And it's,
And
and it's,
there
Waivers
wouldn't be
for the
one on
width.
Hale?
Yes, there'll be one on Hale.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that's
Good.
all you're doing, is asking not to modify the 40th Street.
And we put the sidewalk in, the city put the sidewalk in when the street
When we improved
improvements
40th.
were done on 40th Street, because that was the standard at the time it was done.
Any other questions? Have we gotten a motion? Okay, in a second. Okay. Good.
And it's not a radio station, even though it kind of looks like.
Anybody else? Okay, Rose.
Fulford.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
yes.
8-0.
And the last one is another sidewalk in connection with a single-family dwelling at 13264 Robbins Road. Planning Commission recommends approval of this, of granting a waiver on this one. A resolution approving a waiver of street improvements, drainage, curbs, gutters, and sidewalks set forth in ordinance number 3725 to fill in Madeline Hanby in connection with 13264 Robbins Road, a single-family dwelling.
Move the resolution be adopted.
Second.
Option 1. Option 1.
Yep.
Okay. Got a motion and a second for approval of the resolution with option 1. Any other comments or questions? Anyone? Okay, Rose?
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Reed.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Culver.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Fulford.
Carries 8-0.
All right. Thank you, Patsy. Item 12, Ordinance Committee Reports and Recommendations. Chairman Mike Overton.
Mayor,
Mike?
unfortunately, the committee didn't have the benefit of my enlightened leadership, so I trust that whomever assumed that awesome mantle of responsibility did so with the necessary aplomb and that was necessary to carry out that awesome responsibility.
All right. I believe it was Mr. Watson.
Oh, well, I retract all the previous statements.
I was going to stay quiet.
Yeah.
I think we agreed anybody could do it.
Doesn't take much. Let's see. This ordinance is an ordinance amending section 106-1 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Springdale, Arkansas, declaring an emergency and for other purposes. believe the recommendation of the ordinance committee was to forward to council with recommendation for approval.
What changes did it make to the stormwater manual, drainage manual?
Brad, you want to come up?
We made quite a few all through the manual.
The book that you'd,
Yes. The main thing is.
Pull that mic up just a little bit, Brad. Thank you.
The main thing was it requires detention for everybody to take care of their increased runoff when they pave or at a roof. That was.
and time limit,
Do what?
and a time limit. Didn't we have a problem before with folks that there was no time limit on when they had to do their grading and drainage?
Okay, that was 107 that we've already passed.
Okay.
So we've got that. This does have a couple of changes to integrate with that one that was approved. The other one has to do with erosion control in some of the channels. We had some that were eroding, and so we've changed the velocities that require certain erosion control measures. Another one is we added a section for the karst area. It's a little sliver where Lowell, Cave Springs, and Springdale come together. There's a little bit of the karst in Springdale, and we'd never adopted those standards. Essentially, that says in that area, you're not going to be doing industrial or heavy commercial, and it established there's two little streams up there that have buffer zones now. So it incorporates those things.
I hate to say this, but did we do this at the last committee meeting or the one before that?
It was,
December the 4th.
December 4th.
yeah,
Yeah, so it
a
wasn't
month
at
ago.
It wasn't at the January meeting that I,
So you probably shouldn't be taking this one, Jeff.
that's right, but I'll go ahead and do it anyway.
Yeah, because, my understanding is because it's regulations, 3 copies were placed in the clerk's office, and it was advertised in order to see if there was any community input on it.
Did we get any?
And why did we not do this at the last council meeting? I don't.
Might have been the time frame because I think it has to be advertised for so long a time.
I think we just allowed extra time.
Because of the holidays, and I'm not quite sure.
Maybe that's what it was. Seemed like there was some talk about putting it later.
Might have been.
Talk about putting it on
think
second
we
meeting,
talked
just
about-
give
yeah.
everybody a chance to look at it.
Yeah, I think
because
we
of the
were right.
holidays.
That's right.
Before the holidays.
Yes, we delayed it because of the holidays and to,
We had 2 engineering firms that asked for our markup copies. They reviewed them, and we didn't get any negative feedback, so.
Okay.
Orders do pass. Second.
Okay, now we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? Does anybody in the audience need to speak to this? Okay, Rose?
Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
Reed,
Yes.
Jaycox.
yes.
Culver,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
yes.
Fulford.
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am. Move the first clause be adopted. Second.
Reed,
Yes.
Jaycox,
Yes.
Culver,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Fulford,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
Now, the next ordinance, 12B, was considered at the most recent committee meeting, and that ordinance reads, an ordinance amending Chapter 22-91 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Springdale, Arkansas, having to do with adoption of a 2017 National Electric Code. The committee did forward to council with recommendation for approval.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second for approval. Mike Shamley's here if you have any questions, comments.
These ground fault interrupters, are they required now, but they're not required in the future? Is that correct?
That's correct. It
In
was
the
an
kitchen-
inconsistency in the code, and they've clarified that.
Kitchen and kitchen utility room, correct?
Yes, sir.
That makes sense, okay.
Okay,
So, Mike, didn't you not want us to pass this quite yet, or?
We did ask that we wait and have an implementation date of April 1st. That way we
Yes.
have plenty of time to notify all the contractors, and we'll start with projects permitted at that date and after. That way no one's caught unaware.
And there's no emergency
So that
clause.
gives us over 60 days to make sure everybody knows.
That's in the ordinance.
Yeah. That date is in the ordinance.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Anyone? Okay, Rose?
Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulford?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Reed?
Yes.
Item 12C was also considered by the ordinance committee at the most recent committee meeting. And that ordinance title reads, an ordinance amending section 42-56 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Springdale, Arkansas, and for other purposes. This ordinance has to do with the modification or the changing of the penalties for violation of the noise ordinance, and I'll ask Ernest to talk about that if he would.
The reason we did this is the section 1-9, which is usually the section that's involved, contains the penalty provision for a violation of city ordinance. It gives us a little more leeway, a few more tools in our tool belt to use for violations of the noise ordinance as opposed to just a monetary fine. So that's why we're seeking the change. We're not asking for an emergency clause, but we're
Does this lessen the penalties for a violation of the noise ordinance?
actually, it would provide us the opportunity to, for the court to declare a continuing violation to be a nuisance, and the court can order it to be abated, punishable by contempt, which we don't have under the way it's written now. It's just a monetary fine now.
So this actually gives,
Well, it gives the court more leeway for monetary amounts too, doesn't it? I mean, it's like.
It does. I mean, now it
It's
talks
0 to 1,000 for any offense.
0 to 1,000 and 500 per day for each, if it's a continuing offense, and the judge can also order it to be, or declare it to be a nuisance and order it to be abated, which we don't have
Good.
currently.
okay,
The committee, if I didn't say so, did
You
forward. Okay.
you don't have to be repetitive.
All right.
Motion ordinance pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Anyone? Okay, Rose?
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulford?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Reed?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
All right, thank you. Item 13.
Finance Committee also met the same night as the Ordinance Committee and considered the ordinance found at number 13. The title of that ordinance reads, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to enter into an agreement with the Springdale Chamber of Commerce to promote business development and economic growth, to waive competitive bidding and for other purposes. This ordinance was also forwarded to the council with a recommendation for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Other comments or questions? I know Perry's still here. Do you have any questions? Anyone in the audience? Okay, Rose?
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulford?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Reed?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
Yes.
First clause be adopted.
Second.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulford? Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Reed?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
All right, thank you. Item 14, Street and CIP reports and recommendations. Chairman Rick Evans. Rick?
Last week, street and CIP, and we have 3 resolutions on the agenda tonight, and all of them were brought forward to the council records for approval. First one is a resolution authorizing appropriation of capital improvement project funds, purchase of the patrol vehicles.
Okay.
Move the resolution be adopted.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Tell us what we're doing for the people who are listening or watching at home.
We're going to purchase 12 new police cars with fully equipped, and we're going to purchase half of them now and half of them July 1st.
Okay. All right. And we do have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions?
I had a question. I didn't realize that at the committee meeting, we went ahead and, I thought we were going to bring this back for further consideration in July, I guess. We went ahead and said.
I thought because of the cash flow, that's why we delayed the other 6 cars.
I'm sorry.
I think
Cash flow,
Yeah.
that's why we were buying 6 now.
Right.
And then agreeing to buy 6 in July.
Yeah.
And
I think we can, it does give us an opportunity to come back and revisit if we need to, if we have a concern. Yeah.
we discussed this at budget time when we when we did not put that extra $2 million out of CIP, and the understanding was after the first year, we would come back and transfer these.
Yeah, but what I was asking, Mike, the discussion at the committee meeting was 12, and we decided to go ahead and do 6 now, and then I thought we were going to look at the other 6 in July, which this basically says we're doing it
Well,
no matter what. which
Well,
is
we're
fine.
committing it, and that's what we
Yeah.
discussed at budget time anyway, that we were going to commit to that, so it doesn't matter.
I
if we-
thought it was recommended to go ahead and buy half now and half then.
Yeah,
Have them, but if something comes up, we get a grant or something,
sure.
third party,
And
we
that
come back
makes-
and look
that
at it.
This
makes
gives us
sense,
an
but
opportunity to.
We are
change it if
committing
we
to
need.
the 12 vehicles is
Right.
important.
I think the other point that we made at committee was this is also going to, it's also going to keep the police department from having to compete from the lower amount of CIP money we're going to have this year as opposed to last year, guaranteeing them that they're going to get the 12 instead of having to compete with everyone else.
I think we said we were going to earmark that other 6.
Are you
cars.
suggesting the police chief needs protection?
The other thing, the other thing that we talked about was the sale of the older police cars and the
Yes.
proceeds from the sales going back to CIP. So I don't know how we make sure that happens.
Do we need to take some action to?
I don't know.
I spoke with Laura, and I explained the conversation we had. She said she'd take care of it.
We
I
can just
don't know.
make sure, we can make, if you
All
want us
she'll
to,
do is
we'll just make sure it
When it
happens.
comes in, she'll just earmark it for CIP instead
It'll
of
go
the
back into
general fund.
CIP.
We also discussed purchasing the vehicle that we totaled and offsetting that money with the sale. I talked to her about all of that, and she said she'd take care of it because she gets the money when it comes in from the auctions anyway.
Just designates it, whatever pocket she wants to put it in and keep. Yeah.
Wyman, help me, and Chief both. We'll follow up on that
Okay.
when that happens and make sure that happened. Make sure that money went back to CIP. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions or comments? Anyone? Okay, Rose?
Bofur,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
Reed,
Yes.
Jaycox,
Yes.
Culver,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
Next, we have a resolution appropriated capital improvement fund for the restoration of Shiloh Meeting Hall. And basically, we're just adding $46,825 that they're short after the bids came in, so they can finish it all up the way they want to do it.
Move the resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? Not gonna let Alan say anything? Anybody in the audience? Okay, Rose?
Yes,
Lawson,
ma'am.
Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
Reed,
Yes.
Jaycox,
Yes.
Culver,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Fulford.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
I like it.
Great job, Alan.
Next is a resolution authorizing the transfer of property known as Washington County parcel number 815-28-482-000 to the Bridget Olafin Maddox Trust. It's a little property we had out there we didn't know anything about, and I'll give it over to Ernest to talk about it.
Yeah, this was discovered, the owner of the adjacent property, getting ready to sell it and thought she owned all of it, and it was discovered that that little parcel next to it is actually owned by the city of Springdale. I believe that was a scrivener's error in the original deed. The committee's preference was that the property be transferred, but that the city be granted a right-of-way for that portion of the cul-de-sac and the city right-of-way that's contained in that parcel. And also, she is going to transfer a water and sewer easement all along the southern boundary of actually both parcels, not just the one that's being transferred, but the other parcel as well, prior to her transferring these properties.
That's all in that resolution, Ernest.
Yes. And I've got, actually have the easements right here, so.
Move the resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments, questions? Okay, Rose?
Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
Reed,
Yes.
Jaycox,
Yes.
Culver,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Fulford,
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Carries 8-0.
All right, thank you. Item 15, Parks and Recreation Committee reports and recommendations. Chairman Mike Lawson. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. We had 2 items on the agenda last week, one resolution, one being an ordinance. The first one was a resolution to address some of the capital improvement projects, that being a scoreboard, I think 3 trucks, a turf top dresser, 2 utility vehicles, and 2 Kubota mower decks, totaling $115,000. Resolution reads, a resolution authorizing the appropriation of capital improvement project funds for the purchase of park equipment.
Second.
Okay, thank you. And just a point of, just as a reminder, the mowers that we talked about as a possible lease, Wyman and Bill are still working with the company and making sure, and then we'll work with Ernest to make sure, before we bring back that recommendation, hopefully at next committee meeting, to decide, make sure the lease is possible and legal, and if it is, then we'll bring those back to you Monday, or next Monday, and let you decide which way you want to go on those mowers. Okay, we have a motion.
So, Mayor,
Yeah,
you know, when we get our CIP
right. The report.
report, yes, it generally shows how much money that is in the park fund.
Yeah.
Will it show the reduction of $115,000 out of that fund now?
Should, yes.
That is the way it's going to happen, right?
Right, it'll come out of the park set aside. Correct, Wyman? Okay, so that'll reduce. Now, we're also adding to that every month, so it won't be exactly 100, it won't exactly be this amount. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Did we all, go ahead.
How much is in that set aside?
I just looked at that report this afternoon. It was 900 and something thousand. Yeah. Yeah.
Bill?
And that was set aside originally for land acquisition for parks.
Right.
Well,
Any other questions before we vote?
I think we decided it wasn't gonna amount to much, but I think any money we recoup, we was gonna do kinda like the police cars, I think, and put it back.
yeah,
Okay.
that's what we said.
Anybody in the audience? Okay, Rose?
Reed,
Yes.
Jaycox,
Yes.
Culver,
Yes.
Watson,
Parkland acquisition was 830 as of the end of last year.
Okay.
Overton,
Yes.
Fulford,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans,
Carries 8-0.
All right.
Second
I'm sorry,
item-
Mike.
Second item was an ordinance to waive competitive bidding for maintenance and repairs to the aquatic center, and it was recommended for approval as well. It was basically addressing the sand filters that I think, if my memory serves me right, Bill said it'd been about 10 or 15 years since we had done it, and we basically just want to stay with the same company that has done the work on the pool in the past and kind of knows a little history.
Move the ordinance be passed.
Second.
Motion is second. Further comments or questions?
I'm willing to only make one comment. Again, I see no reason why we didn't choose to, except for the reputation of this company, I'm not questioning that, to see if there were other opportunities out there. When the pool closed in September, we knew what the needs were going to be. We've had months to try and find bids. It comes to us again when there's no other choice, because we waited until the last minute and the pool has to be ready to be opened. So that's my only comment. I will support this, but I'm going to make that comment. I want it on the record.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other comments, questions?
Jaycox,
Yes.
Culver,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Fulford,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
Reed,
Yes.
Let's have an emergency clause.
Move the emergency clause pass.
Second.
Okay.
Culver,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Fulford, Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
Reed,
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Let the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
All right. Thank you. Item 16, Health, Sanitation, Property Maintenance Committee reports and recommendations. Chairman Jim Reed. Jim?
This is an ordinance coming to us, ordering the raising demolition and removal of certain residential structure within the city of Springdale, Arkansas, located at 503 Walt Avenue, and to declare an emergency. Committee recommended approval. This is a house that we had a fire in. It's in really bad shape. It's really close to one of our elementary schools, and it's dangerous. We know from dealing with another property right close to it that the lady who owned it is deceased, and nobody seems to want to claim this. So as a committee, we thought it was time for it to come on down. Tom, do you want to add anything to it?
All right, yeah, Jim's got it exactly right. This property, like I said, it's burned. I did take a number that I was given by the fire marshal of a gentleman saying that he was the person collecting rents on this property. As of sometime in December, it became vacant. That name's not known to any records to be a part of this property. I've made contact or tried to make contact with the number and no return call. So again, nobody's claiming responsibility. In the committee meeting last week, I did tell you I would post something on the house that would say this, and I'd like to give it to Ernest and he can read it. It's in these pictures too. I'll pass them out. I'll start from there. I took pictures of it, so it's on there.
Okay.
The section that I had. And I just spoke with the fire chief, and it's like, we'll make sure that they've done all their investigations before we would move forward with it. He thinks that they're done, but I'll definitely check on that. I've already gotten 3 bids, and I can have that, Wyman look at those tonight, when we're ready to go on that. So.
The note that Tom posted, the last paragraph, I'll read the whole thing, but if you want me to, but the last paragraph says, "This home may be raised by the city under an emergency clause due to no response from the owner of this property. This may occur anytime after the 23rd of January. If anyone has reason why this should not occur, please contact me at the number listed below. Once home and all structures removed, a lien will be placed on the property."
Yes, sir.
This one's a little different than we normally do because there is a provision in our ordinance that I can't remember the last time that we've used it, but this one's so bad that it needs to come down immediately, and there is a provision in our ordinance that normally when you pass one of these, they get 10 days to start, 30 days to finish, but this one's so bad, in the judgment of the building official, it needs to come down now. Like I said, we don't usually use that provision, but it is there for these types of situations.
I'll move the resolution pass. Pardon me?
Ordinance.
Sorry, it's an ordinance. I apologize. I moved it.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the ordinance to pass. Any other comments or questions from anyone? Okay, Rosa.
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulford?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans? Reed?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
Yes.
Move the emergency clause pass.
Second.
Overton?
Yes.
Fulford?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Yes, ma'am.
Reed?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Culver?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
Okay.
And Mayor, if I could, just because it is a little bit out of the ordinary, is there any stipulation on how long the council would like me to let it stay, or do you want me just to start? I'm not sure when I can get my contractor to start, but I mean, I'd imagine within a week he could, so.
Soon possible, I'd say.
Emergency clause is emergency clause, so it's up to you.
It needs, we agree that it needs to
Okay.
come down.
Okay.
It's a hazard right now.
Okay, that's what I wanted
Put
to
it on
hear.
the mayor's ex
Thank you,
officio
Tom.
amendment.
I didn't, some of them didn't get sent down.
All right.
Thanks, Tom. All right. Item 17, Public Vehicle Commission reports and recommendations. Chairman Kathy Jaycox. Kathy?
We met last week. Ozark Regional Transit has a request for additional funding. There's a representative here to speak to it. They had an enormous fire this year. They had a perfect storm for a shortfall in their budget, including some other a county that withheld funding. So they asked for a larger amount. So this committee recommended that we fund them $15,000 till they can get to their next board meeting, I believe,
Right.
and come up with a different kind of a plan that doesn't require quite as much funding from us, if possible.
Right, as Kathy said, and then Jeff, you were at the, I know Joel presented, but you were at the meeting. By committee next Monday night, I think the idea was for y'all to present us with some options about what we could do with routes and how much each, to present us some options. But this 15,000, which again comes out of it's our back money out of Sam's budget. This 15,000 would get us through to until after the next council meeting without affecting the current routes.
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
Okay.
I thought we were also going to ask Sam, or, talk with Sam to see how it was going to affect him.
And we're doing that.
15,000 you don't put inside.
Excuse me. Yeah, February 5th will be the committee meeting, and if you all approve this, it'll allow ORT to continue with their current times and routes. And Wyman has done some investigating into Sam's budget, and I'm not sure we've discussed it with Sam yet, but we'll have that information. We'll have that information with you for you also on the next committee meeting. Okay. And we do have
Resolution pass?
Resolution amending the 2018 budget of the City of Springdale Street Department.
Would the resolution pass?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions?
How did the conversations go with Rogers and Bentonville?
Good question, Colby.
We didn't get into the budget shortfall so much as we were talking about the light bus rapid transit locations for transit stations. So we haven't gotten into the depth of that yet. I think we're waiting for for our board meeting first before we.
So,
Were you asking for additional funds from them?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? They didn't offer any?
Well, we're asking for something to meet this budget shortfall, either asking for additional
I don't
funds.
know, but they haven't responded to your
We
request for money?
We haven't pushed Rogers and Bentonville yet.
Oh,
Fayetteville has agreed.
Yes.
And will you also be going to, what about Benton County?
We haven't addressed them yet, as far as I know.
But you will be?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
When we met last Tuesday night, wasn't it, I understood it that you were meeting with Rogers the next morning to address this same situation. That wasn't addressed?
Well, we met with them, but I was at the meeting, and like I say, we mostly talked about the light bus rapid transit. And
You weren't meeting with council, you were meeting with?
We were just meeting with our representative on our board, which is the city planner.
I think it was a little misleading that last Tuesday then, I think.
Jeff, I think all of us in the room understood that you were meeting with those cities to talk about the shortfall and how they could also help you through this funding crisis.
The only thing I can say is that perhaps we're going to do that at our board meeting on Thursday.
maybe the next time we really
By Monday
need a
night.
clarification.
For committee, you'll have.
Yes.
Okay.
When do you meet? When does your board meet again?
Thursday, I believe at noon.
Okay, okay. Well, yeah, if you'll let them know that we need, I mean, obviously, I think it's the feeling of the council that we would certainly expect Rogers and Bentonville and Benton County to be approached the same way.
Absolutely.
Just as you did Fayetteville and us.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
How much cash do y'all have on hand to operate?
I can't answer that. I don't know. But I can certainly get that answer for you.
Well, if you can ask us for additional funds, I'd think you'd know how much you needed and how much you had.
The budget shortfall.
I know, but we're just asking, you're asking us for some immediate cash, so, I think this council would deserve to know exactly how much cash you got, so just how dire your straits are. So
Sure.
that'd be important for you to provide us.
Sure.
Next time you ask.
Absolutely.
Well, I'd like a little explanation also on why the insurance seemed, it didn't really jive, at least from the explanation we heard the other night on, you got 13 buses that are not going to be replaced, or you don't have the money to replace?
The insurance we had was not total replacement value. It was depreciated value. And some of the buses that were destroyed had well over 300,000 miles on them. So we got what we paid for with the insurance, but to have insurance to have total replacement costs in an event like this, which is so unlikely, is cost prohibitive. So they paid, but.
It doesn't buy new buses.
Right.
I think, just for me, two things that I'd like to see if we increase this is, one, that some of the money that we put to this, if we do, is earmarked towards a better insurance purchase so that we're not caught in the same situation in case we do have another catastrophic event. And I think the other for me would be if we, every year that we go back to our budget and decide we're going to give, I can't remember what the amount was, 260 something.
265.
265, that there's an agreement in place that certain routes will be done, because if there is a shortfall, what we're looking at is, even though we're going to give the 265 that we set aside in the 18 budget, it's going to be reduced now, so we're not quite getting what we thought we were going to pay for. So I'd like to see some kind of an agreement that if we give that amount to ORT, that we're guaranteed certain services.
Certain services and certain routes that are clearly defined in the city limits of Springdale, yes.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
I will just say that obviously the bulk of our shortfall is derivatives from the fire, but some of it is we have absorbed a lot of the additional labor costs and fuel costs. That's just a typical increase in cost, going forward, and we've absorbed those for several years.
Those kind of things you should have known when we were planning our budget back in September and October.
Yep, I agree.
And I have raised that with Joel, that this is a bad time to be coming back and after our budget is approved. One of the factors that you didn't know is that at the time was that Washington County was going to reduce their funding.
Correct.
That was going to be my question. How much did Washington County reduce their contribution?
They dropped it by 100,000, and then that also took with it the state matching.
That also takes the match with it.
Which they did that in November?
October. Yeah, I believe. No, it was
What was the
November.
match?
I thought it was later than that.
November.
What kind of match were they getting for that 100%?
They're getting
From
100%
whom?
match, and the match could be used. Now what Washington County contributes, if I'm understood Joel right, what Washington County contributes is for use in the county.
Yes.
But the match can be used
And the match comes from
elsewhere.
whom? The match comes from
It'd
whom?
be a federal match or a state. You said
I
state.
thought it was state.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. Yeah.
Pretty sure it was state.
So basically, you lost $200,000.
I think
Yes.
it's the same turnback money that we used to pay.
So Mayor, when we
That's
when we
state
consider this, are we next Monday night, is that right?
Yes.
Can we have explanation from Wyman or somebody as to maybe a history of our turnback funds?
Sure.
I'm not sure I knew what we expected to have in turnback funds in 2018.
When we did this, Jeff, when we started, we realized a few years ago that we could make our contribution to ORT out of state road turnback. It was, before then, it was coming out of our general fund. And we started it the same year that the half-cent sales tax, I think, was passed, that generated us about another $1.2 million a year of state turnback. So we're taking we've been taking 265 out of that, or whatever the amount was before it went to 265. And that's how, and we've been paying it out of state turnback since then.
Yeah, but the important thing is, though, every dollar we take out of Sam's budget is a dollar that doesn't go towards sidewalks or street improvements.
That's
in Springdale.
absolutely true.
Blacktop.
And Jeff, let me correct too. I just was reminded for the second time by Ernest that committee's not next week, it's in 2 weeks. So it'll be a week from next Monday.
But February 5th.
Yeah, February 5th.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Do have a motion and a second. All right. Rose?
Bofur,
No.
Lawson,
This is just for the 15,000, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
Reed, Jaycox,
Yes.
Culver,
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
No.
Carries 6-2.
All right. Item 18, any comments from our department heads? Council?
Just want to apologize for being late. I was at senior night for my grandson at Harbor High. And
All right.
y'all for putting up with
And
it.
how'd they do?
I didn't get to watch him wrestle.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I'd have missed this meeting.
Well, maybe you can catch him if you go back. Ernest, do you have anything?
No, sir.
Nothing from me. You got a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion 2.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.